Hey Lionheart folks, it's Lev. Welcome back to another video. For those of you who are new, I use he and pronouns back in this room because my house is quiet and I tend to like filming in this room every now and then. This is the living room and I'm sitting on the couch. Just a random fact. I'm starting to notice my Adam's apple come out, and I know that testosterone can make Adam's apple come out for some people. People who are like trans and like assigned to my birth and go on testosterone. But I didn't know whether I would get an Adam's apple, but I am starting to notice it come out. And I don't really know if it's visible on camera. It might be too dark, but I do notice it coming out and it's really exciting. Anyway, today's video, I wanted to talk about, I guess, try to, I don't know if this makes the most sense, but try to explain transphobia. More so like explore where it comes from my understanding of things, just like deep dive into why does society hold this belief, why do we have this, why and had a just challenging transphobia a little bit, and also doing a little flip exercise. Like I've seen people make YouTube videos about this. It's like transphobia, but it's cisphobia, and it's like, what if we lived in a world where being trans was so-called normal and being cis was so-called abnormal, and then just flipping that and just exploring transphobia stuff. So the first thing that crosses my mind is, actually I should also say, it's like just stuff I can think of, and then maybe I'll do some research on the internet for more things like misconceptions, unhelpful ideas, straight up transphobia, stuff like that. The first thing I can think of is the idea that being trans is a choice. Firstly, it's not a choice and no one chooses. I should also say, when I say trans, I mean trans and gender diverse, so it's not just binary trans people, it includes non-binary trans people too, and gender queer, gender fluid, all of that. Like all of us, not just binary trans, but I say trans for short, but what I really mean is trans and gender diverse, all of us. The idea that being trans is a choice. Firstly, it's not a choice because no one chooses. I guess in this world where being trans is not seen as equal to being cisgender, and there's all this discrimination, hate, oppression, lack of equal rights, lack of representation, identity erasure, basically 10 million things that cisgender people do not experience because they are cisgender. No one chooses this. No, like cisgender people do not choose their identities, nor do trans people choose their identities. Yet people, the idea in society is that trans people choose their identities, which is not true. As for why this idea is perpetuating, my understanding is being cisgender is seen as so-called normal, and then trans people existed for a very long time. The only difference now compared to like past times is it's spoken about more, people are being more open about it, more people are coming out, it's being seen more like in media, not necessarily in the best light, but then there is more awareness of trans people in general, and there are more resources that are accessible, so more people might realize they are trans, and then that stuff. It's not trans people never existed, it's nor is it like this new phenomenon that's suddenly rising up and came out of nowhere. It's being trans is being seen more. It's being seen more. It's coming out of the shadows more. More light is shining on it, and no longer in the darkness. It's not. It was there the whole time. It's just no light was shining on it, and now more light shining on it. And I think people think, although people in general, not saying every single person, it's generally speaking in society, I think people believe it's a choice because it's unfamiliar. And then if it's unfamiliar, people might think that it's just it's unfamiliar and it's like so different to what people know. And when I say people, actually I mean myself too, because I didn't know about trans experiences or that trans people existed for like the first 20 years of my life. I didn't even know trans people existed. And then when I first learned about it, I wasn't exactly against it, but I was really scared of it because I'm like, I've only known cisgender. I didn't have the language for cisgender, but I basically only knew that cisgender people existed, and I had no idea about trans people. And I'm like, what is this new experience? And these people with trans identity, I'm like, what is this? I was really scared. I avoided the whole thing because it was unfamiliar territory, and I didn't want to go anywhere near it. That is until I had to sort of lean into it more because I am trans, and then I couldn't run away from myself. So I was, in a way, I was forced to confront this part of me, which means confronting the thing I was scared of the whole time, which is trans things. I sort of have a shorter, less long-winded answer to like this explanation. It's like being cisgender is all we've ever known our whole life, especially I guess if we haven't learned about it or have awareness of it. Growing up, like being cisgender is all we've known. This is our understanding of the world. Only cis people exist. Trans people do not exist. That's our view of the world. And then if someone comes out to us or we see trans experiences or hear about trans people for the first time, it's like, wait, this conflicts with this understanding of the world I have and people. What is this? People must be choosing this because I only know of this. And to me, being cis is normal. And what the hell is this thing over here? Yes, it's unfamiliar to what I've known. And I'm not this thing over here that's transgender. I'm cis. So, therefore, if I'm cis and my view is cis is so-called normal, then people must choose to be trans because I didn't choose to be trans, so why are these people over here trans? So they must choose to be trans because I'm not trans, and cis people are normal is my view, therefore people must choose to be trans. This is not like any transphobia or not very nice trans thing specific, but just challenging the existing views we all have in our heads. And I say we because I also have this in my head, and although I've made progress in breaking out of a lot of internalized transphobia, there is still internalized transphobia harboring inside of me. When I say internalized transphobia, it's all of the messages that living in this world has told me about my identity, like I'm not normal. And then there's all the shame associated with the guilt, it's not okay to be me, all of this stuff still harbors inside of me to a degree, and it still affects me subconsciously. And it's important that all of us understand where our beliefs and thoughts come from, because no one comes out of the womb. Something I like to say a lot is no one comes out of the womb and be like, I hate trans people. Trans people are abnormal. They don't deserve equal rights, and they're an abomination to society, and they mess everything up, and they take away our rights, and blah 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 blah. No one comes out of the womb thinking that. Right? Like, think about it. Where do our beliefs come from? We didn't come out of the womb thinking it. It's everything the world tells us. We learn when we are children and infants. Our brain is like a sponge. We absorb everything. And if the world is saying, and if the world around us tells us that cis people are in a way better than trans people, and that trans people are invalid, and that it's not okay to be trans or anything other than cisgender, then that's what gets absorbed into our brains, and that's the narrative that gets built into us. It's the foundation. The narrative of cis is okay, trans is not. That's the story. And then years after year after year after year of living in this world and having this message reinforced, strengthened, then we just go off that subconsciously without even necessarily realizing, because it's really there's a lot of things that go on in our subconscious, as in the part of our mind that we are not aware of. A lot of things happen subconsciously. Like when we move our arm, we don't consciously think, okay, muscle, arm, move up a little bit. We just do it. That's subconscious. We don't, like, I'm not thinking about muscle move muscle move up, like, it doesn't like that. That's subconscious. When we walk, we don't think about walking. That's subconscious. It's just not motor stuff. It's a lot of our thoughts and things, or the information that goes into our brains literally every single day. Everything we're exposed to, it goes into our heads, and we don't realize it, and it ends up affecting our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, beliefs, and we don't realize it. That's why I'm encouraging everyone now, and I do this myself as well. I do this every day. I'm still working on it. Question where our beliefs come from, and if it's like not really helpful, start challenging it. Rewriting the narrative. The second trans thing related thing I can think of is people asking about trans people's bodies and the surgery and hormones, and particularly what is downstairs. And I find that a bit odd, because why obsess? This might be a bit crude. I'm just gonna little heads up here. Why do some people obsess over trans people's genitals and desperately want to know what is downstairs? It's funny also, because people don't go around asking cisgender people, what do you have downstairs? It's like none of this is relevant to anything, and no one needs to ask that at all. And I guess people might get confused between sex and gender and think that trans people have some unhuman anatomy, or that we're some undiscovered alien species with random fuck, I can't even speak properly right now. Random foreign body parts or bodies. No, we're all human. Trans people are human. I should just reiterate that. I can't believe I actually have to reiterate this. Trans people are human, and we are either assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth, or assigned intersex, or with an intersex variation. That's all humans. This is not gender. This is biological sex. Male, female, or intersex. And if you're not sure about the anatomy of humans, I do recommend Googling it to understand, and don't ask trans people about bodies and genitals and stuff, because it's really not nice and very invasive. It's like I said, we don't go to cis people and be like, what do you have downstairs? We don't. Yet trans people get asked this. Like, it's okay. It's not okay, and it's not appropriate. So I don't advise you to go ask trans people what do you have downstairs, nor is it relevant to anything for you to know. And the whole the whole thing about that I hear about trans women being like pedophiles and like trans women shouldn't be in women's spaces and that trans women shouldn't use women's bathrooms and stuff. I personally don't have direct experience with that because I'm a trans man. However, I've heard a lot of that, and that is something that actually goes on. People being weirded out and not liking trans women in women's bathrooms, even though trans women are women and they deserve to be in women's spaces. It's weird if I, as a trans man, went into the women's bathroom because I'm a man, but trans women are women. And yes, they may be trans women and not cisgender women, but that doesn't make them less of a woman, and that does not invalidate their right to access women's spaces. And also just want to point out, this is crude too, but trans women are not pedophiles because they're assigned male at birth. Like, that's the association why trans women are assigned male at birth, therefore they must be pedophiles because they were born assigned a man. Is that the logic here? I don't have an explanation for this one, but it's something I do want to raise and bring attention to it and advocate for trans women because this is actually incredibly damaging and just outright trash. I was gonna say bullshit too. I honestly don't even know why those two things are linked together. Like, trans women being like dangerous to children and women in women's bathrooms and women's spaces. I don't even know why that association exists. But it's not helpful to anyone, and it needs to be like thrown in fire and burnt permanently. The next thing is hormones and medical transition. I'm going to specifically talk about accessing hormones from my personal experience and what I've heard and what I've seen on the internet, indirectly through trans YouTubers reacting to things. Is like, hormones are dangerous, hormones. What else? What do people say about hormones? Hormones are dangerous. Mutilating our body. We're mutilating our body. That also, I heard that about gender-affirming surgery too. We're mutilating our bodies and doing, I think the main thing is like doing all this damage to our bodies and mutilating our bodies and stuff like that. And let me just tell you right now, all the people out there who believe this, that going on testosterone saved my life in a way. And if I wasn't on testosterone right now, I will be still feeling suicidal to this day and want to die every single day. And that's not an exaggeration. It saved my life. It saved my sanity. And I mean, the only bad thing I don't like about testosterone is acne, but that is not like some mutilation to my body or damage to my body. Testosterone has not damaged my body in any shape or form. And if it was in fact a very dangerous thing, then, and it's actually like killed people, or people have like severe, like if a lot of people who went on hormone replacement therapy, if it was really dangerous, a lot of people would get sick or have really bad adverse effects, then it won't even be allowed in the first place, and it would be everywhere, and it would probably not even be in production if it's a lot of people basically get hurt from it. Would not pass safety, would not, none of this would happen. It won't even be produced and circulated and be able to be accessed. Not that it's already hard for trans people to access it, but it'll be like probably not even be found if it was actually dangerous and does serious harm to people. And I think this belief that it's dangerous and stuff just comes from hearing from others that sort of transphobia and not really questioning the truth of what it really is. Like, I guess it's human nature. Like, we hear people say things and we sort of take it on board, and we don't, I say we because I do the same thing. It's like I hear something and then it's like, oh, it must be true because this person said it, and then that just gets passed on everywhere. It's like, oh, this person says to this person, oh, hormones are dangerous, blah 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 blah, and then that person says to another person that hormones are dangerous, blah blah blah, and it's just like, it just spreads like, it spreads like fucking coronavirus. Okay, it spreads like fucking coronavirus. Probably even worse than coronavirus, to be honest. It spreads like that, and then everyone just ends up believing it, and then that becomes the standard belief in society. It's like, I do encourage everyone. It's not, I should just encourage in general, like, it's not just about testosterone or hormones or trans things in general. This actually, I can apply to life in general. It's just like, we shouldn't necessarily believe everything people say to us just because they say it to us. It's like, you can do our research. Like, most of us have access to the internet. If you're watching this video, you have access to a device that can access YouTube plus access to the internet. But then also the internet has a lot of rubbish on it, so being careful what we read on the internet, like finding reliable sources, challenging, again, I refer to challenging our own beliefs, trying to understand where our beliefs and where our ideas actually come from. Where does it come from? Now that I reflect back, a lot of my views about trans experiences and where I stand comes from my own lived experience of going through it, and like living in this world as a trans person, trying to navigate my identity in a world that's not very kind. It's like my direct lived experience, but it's not the same for everyone either. This next thought isn't specific to any like particular idea or line or anything, but I think a lot of transphobia in general, like a lot of transphobia and the people who spew transphobia, a lot of that I think comes from fear. Like, deep at the core, I think it comes from fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of confronting things, like hearing that ideas opposite to us. Like, I just made a video, my previous video is emotional growth. Emotional maturity growth requires confrontation, and fear of unknown, fear of uncertainty, fear of confronting things, and also, like, I think it's rooted in a lot of unresolved trauma for people, and part of that, like I mentioned in my previous video, is projecting our own insecurities, fears, unresolved baggage, and our wounds, just projecting on other people. Every single person does this. Every single human does this. I'm no exception. I used to do it a lot more. I do it less now, but I still do it. Everyone does it. Projecting our own shit onto other people. Everyone, every single human being does it. No one is immune to this. And yeah, I think that's a lot of the root of a lot of transphobia is just fear. And instead of sort of leaning into trying to understand this, also instead of trying to lean into understanding this, like more about trans people and trans experiences and questioning ourselves and challenging why our current beliefs and stuff like that resort to shutting down, finding it hard to listen to the other person's point of view, getting very defensive. And I think like anger, rage, hatred towards trans people is a mask. It's sort of like a mask and also a projection, but also a mask for all of the stuff that the person has going on deep down in their own world, in their own internal world. And also another thing about humans is that in my experience, when I'm scared or when I used to have really bad anxiety, even about trans things, my brain cannot or finds it very hard to think logically and do anything but respond out of emotion and what I've known to do to adapt and survive in this world. It's like my trauma response. Basically, my trauma response. I respond out of fear and emotion because my nervous system goes haywire. I don't really know what to do, and I don't really respond beyond my adapted mechanisms to survive in this world, which is run, avoid, get defensive, or shut down, or just freeze and be like, fuck, I don't know what to do, go into panic because once again my nervous system went haywire, and if my nervous system goes haywire, then it fucks up my entire thing. And that's where I think we need to start, all of us need to start breathing the ridge for. It's like we need, as much as I don't like transphobia, I'm not saying I love transphobia and I welcome more of it and just like, let's put more transphobia into the world. I'm not saying that at all. Nor am I saying that transphobia is okay and that it's not damaging. It's incredibly damaging and incredibly unhelpful. But just I also acknowledge that just telling people to be like, stop spewing transphobia, people, stop behaving in a transphobic way, stop saying transphobic things, is not going to stop it because it's habitual. Like, a lot of it takes a lot of recognizing things and breaking out of certain patterns of thinking, behaving, or changing the narrative requires a lot of looking into ourselves. As, I don't know, deep as this might sound, it really is about looking into ourselves, confronting things, questioning things, and starting to rewrite the narrative, rewrite the story within our own world. Because once we start changing the narrative we have in our own mind, then the way we talk to people is different. And subconsciously, we don't say things that are harmful, and things come out subconsciously, and then in the people we interact with, and then that sort of spreads in a chain. Just like how transphobia can spread in a chain, and yes, not necessarily just a chain, just spread everywhere. just as transphobia can spread anywhere, we can all work together to rewrite the narrative, to spread more awareness, more kindness, more inclusivity for trans and gender diverse folks. It is possible, but it takes a lot of people, and no like one person or no small group can do it. All of us have to play our part in doing it. And once again, that starts from reconnecting with ourselves, starts from reconnecting with ourselves, whether we are cis or trans, and healing from within, and then starting to, once we have sort of a stable ground to work on, as in our nervous system is okay, then we can start rewriting narrative, which then changes a lot of things. Thanks for watching, folks, and I will see you in the next video.